Thank you very much, Barry, Dan Brandt, and the whole team that's brought us together today. I too would like to recognize the Algonquin Nation, whose traditional territory we are holding this gathering. And I'd like to thank Elder William for his great prayer today. Thank you all very much for participating in the launching of this, what we hope will be an exciting dialogue series. This is the first of 5 planned dialogues exploring 4 themes: nation building and nation rebuilding, jurisdiction, intergovernmental fiscal relations, and collective governance and wealth creation. We also recognize that there's a lot of work proceeding in lots of borders in this space, across First Nations, Métis and Inuit peoples, across governments at all levels, and civil society and academia. But we are hoping that this dialogue will begin to bring together at these future events, will stimulate discussion by providing a respectful and neutral environment where participants can openly communicate the precursors for what we hope will be change. Along with our partners, we recognize the opportunity that this moment in history presents and believe that now is the time to share, each one of us, our vision in an open forum that can assist in moving the most important relationship in Canada forward. The federal government is committed to pursuing a nation-to-nation relationship based on recognition of rights, respect, cooperation and partnership with Indigenous peoples in Canada, acknowledging this as both the right thing to do and the path to economic and social growth. This commitment invites the opportunity for thoughtful reflection and discussion of the path forward to achieve this nation-to-nation series of relationships. As Canada looks to mark the sesquicentennial and celebrate 150 years since Confederation, important conversations that started long before confederations continue to need to be held about Canadian identity, both past and future. A new nation-to-nation relationship is a fundamental component of fostering reconciliation and restoring resilience to Indigenous nations. Over the course of the past 30 years, from Section 35 negotiations through the Royal Commission to the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, Indigenous leadership has articulated the many aspects of what the nation-to-nation relationship means. Establishing a new relationship with the Crown for all 3 groups includes Indigenous self-government founded in self-determination, legal capacity, access to resources, the recognition of inherent Aboriginal and treaty rights, as well as the ability to exercise and implement inherent rights and responsibilities. Treaty renewal, treaty implementation, fiscal arrangements, and resource revenue sharing, and finally, closing that very important social and economic gap that's faced by First Peoples across this land. Developing a new relationship with Indigenous people in Canada will present a challenge to both federal and provincial governments, make no mistake. However, it is necessary from a social, legal, and economic perspective. Recognizing the opportunities that this moment presents, the Institute on Governance is convening a dialogue around the nation-to-nation relationship. The IOG fundamentally believes that nations and leaders must have the opportunity to share their vision in an open forum and direct the agenda moving forward. By convening experts and facilitating the exchange of knowledge, this project aims to bring to the forefront systemic governance challenges that have impeded advancements in the relationship and how it's built to date. We are seeking, with your help, to articulate the characteristics of the nation-to-nation relationship as defined by Indigenous leaders and government departments, as well as identifying the key issues, the challenges, and the opportunities that we must all face together. The IOG is hoping to set the table to continue this dialogue around the characteristics of the nation-to-nation relationship. This series of dialogues, hosted in partnership with Canadians for a New Partnership and others as we move across the country, builds and expands on a foundation of timely and relevant dialogues hosted by the IOG that convene all parties in a neutral and respectful environment. We're not Johnny-come-latelys to this conversation. In 2012 and 2013, we hosted the Beyond Section 35 Symposia Series across Canada, in Ottawa, in Calgary, and in Vancouver, bringing together community leaders, academics, senior public servants, and other experts to reflect on the promise of Section 35 of the Canadian Constitution and how to more rapidly advance these relationships. In 2014, we gathered leaders from governments, Indigenous leadership, and private sector and academia at the Towards Reconciliation Symposia in Toronto to discuss the future of Indigenous governance and to share perspectives on important legal, governance, social, and economic advancements made since the 1996 report of the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples. In 2016, we facilitated 2 panels, the characteristics of a nation-to-nation relationship and how can Indigenous shared governance institutions support a nation-to-nation relationship. All of this material can be found on our website at iog.ca. Much of it is still very useful in today's discussions. And indeed, from my perspective, it still presents important insights that can help shape go forward. So once again, I'd like to stress that it's our hope that by convening experts and facilitating the exchange of knowledge, these dialogues will identify the key issues, challenges, and opportunities that we can focus on. These 5 dialogues, which will be held, as I said, in Vancouver, Toronto, Halifax, and then back in Ottawa for the summary, will provide opportunities through the upcoming year to discuss the most important relationship, as articulated by the Prime Minister, to our country, Canada. We would encourage you to review the background paper, which is on the USB keys in front of you, that you received when registering. It's an excellent paper, if I do say so myself, that provides an overview of the series. The focus of this dialogue, nation building and nation rebuilding, can be found in the early parts of the paper up to page 9. This discussion paper focuses on the 4 themes that are central to the nation-to-nation relationship: nation building, nation rebuilding, the issues of jurisdiction, the new intergovernmental fiscal relationships that are required, and wealth creation and the promises to forge a new nation-nation relationship with Indigenous peoples across Canada as ever a priority, not only for the federal government, but for all of us. But we know that this will not happen overnight. The foundation of an effective relationship is trust and mutual respect. Government needs to work to develop a blueprint with tangible objectives for renewing this relationship. Relationships must transform before systems can transform. Moving forward with structured and respectful dialogues can help provide the basis for greater prosperity and the realization of the full potential for a changed relationship between Indigenous peoples across Canada and the rest of Canada. As Justice Murray Sinclair has noted, reconciliation is about forging and maintaining respectful relationship. There are no shortcuts. So again, in the words of our Elder William and his great prayer, good hearts, good minds, and good spirits should guide our discussions and our conversations in this fora and in the next fora to follow. Thank you very much for being here. We very much need your participation. I hope you all do enjoy the very wonderful lineup of panelists and speakers who have graciously provided their time to be here and offer their valuable insights. So thank you again for being here. And now I want to turn the floor over to my dear friend, Miles Richardson.
Thank you, Maryantonett, and to Barry for your generous introduction to the Algonquin Nation on whose territory we're gathered today, and Elder William for your excellent, inspiring prayer this morning. I am Miles Richardson. I am Kilslide Kaji State. I'm from the Eagles of Jot of the Haida Nation on the West Coast. And I'm here today as a director of Canadians for a New Partnership. Canadians for a New Partnership are a group of Canadians who got together through the vision of our founder, Stephen Catfee, the past Premier of the Northwest Territories, President of the Dene Nation, who had serious concerns in the days of Idle No More, and as the Truth and Reconciliation Commission wound down and all the pain of that was coming to the surface, and felt that we needed a group of champions in Canada to make sure that something was done about reconciliation in this country, that it was time that we did this task right, that we did it correctly, really that we did what we should have done 150 years ago as Canada was established. So Canadians for a New Partnership is a group of ex-national chiefs, ex-Indigenous leaders from across this country, past prime ministers, elders and youth who are committed to that task. And today we're partnering here with the Institute on Governance, who's been a staunch supporter of this agenda and has been doing really good work over the years on bringing interested government officials, Indigenous leaders, different people from across the country together to dialogue and further this discussion that is so important. And one thing that Canadians for a New Partnership is committed to doing is articulating and championing the effective way to build this new relationship. And that's by dialoguing with Canadians and engaging everyone across this country in this initiative. We've got everything we need to prosper, all of us, in this nation that today we call Canada. And as we work through the next 2 days, let's really focus on the opportunity that's in front of us and the challenge of unlocking, unleashing our potential as Indigenous peoples, as Indigenous nations, Inuit and Métis, and this fledgling nation, this young nation that we're building together called Canada. You know, one thing in doing this, one thing I want to remind you of is 150 years ago, Canada, I think, started off on the right path, committing to treaty making, that we need to treat each other as we see ourselves, as nations, as Indigenous people. That's what we've always been. And in the colonial period, when Canada was jostling with the other colonial powers for domination in Turtle Island, they brought a proposal over from Britain, the Royal Proclamation of 1763, where none of our interests could be ceded or could be taken away from our nations without a formal treaty with the British Crown. That was the right beginning. That was the right way to begin. And they brought that proposal to Niagara Falls, where they entered into the Treaty of Niagara with the Eastern tribes, which was all that they were in contact with then. And you look at the covenant chain, I think was that a Haudenosaunee covenant chain, Mike? And you look at the two-row wampum, that is as eloquent and clear an articulation of the desired relationship as any of us need today. And you know, that was at the beginning point. That's the relationship that we intended to enter into. And then everything went wrong very quickly. As Canada was established 150 years ago, the first thing they set up was the Indian Act. They changed their mind. Canada decided that far from recognizing who we are as nations and entering into honorable treaties of coexistence and sharing, that they were going to deny any of our human entitlements and assimilate us through the Indian Act. Exactly the wrong thing to do. So for the past 50, 60 years, we've been moving through the persistence of our leaders and through the courts, the clarity of the courts, the integrity of the courts, to pointing toward what the Truth and Reconciliation recommended to us. The same thing RCAP did 20 years ago. The same recommendations. We need to change our fundamental relationship. And that, when we talk about nation to nation, is what we're talking about over the next 2 days. That far from a policy of denial and assimilation, Canada must breathe life into its good commitment to re-establishing, and they use those words, re-establishing nation-to-nation relationships. I say to you that takes a formal commitment. It'll take time to flesh that out, but we must begin that with a reaffirmation of that commitment on both sides of the negotiating table. That Canada must commit to recognizing Indigenous peoples, Indigenous nations, as we see ourselves. Recognizing us and working with us to solve our own problems, solve our own challenges. You know, Kelowna was a noble idea, putting all those billions of dollars into a pot to close the social gaps. One thing that I recognize very clearly is you can put the whole budget of Canada into closing the social gaps, and you ain't gonna get there. You can't, nobody in Ottawa can parachute in solutions for our people. We have to do that as collectives, as nations, and the best Canada can do is to recognize who we see ourselves in our territories and work with us to address issues to our people. Now that's going to take some effort on our side too, and we better not sweep that under the rug. We better keep that front and center. That as Indigenous people, we must define who we are as peoples, as nations. We must define our citizenship. We must define our relationship to our territories. And that takes effort. And one thing that I've come to realize over the years is that you cannot be a nation without an acceptable measure of sovereignty. Sovereignty to me isn't a airy-fairy term. What's the word for it? It's something impractical. On the contrary, sovereignty is something that you don't negotiate sovereignty. Sovereignty isn't something somebody else bestows on you. Sovereignty exists right here, inside your beating heart. That's where your nation's sovereignty exists. And if it doesn't exist there, you know what? It probably doesn't exist. We have to stand up and express that, and stand up and let Canada know who we are as nations, and call them forward and challenge them on this relationship. I remember a little over a year ago, and again in Niagara Falls, Canada's Justice Minister, Jody Wilson-Raybould, came out and said, we recognize UNDRIP, the United Nations Declaration. We're committed to nation. We need to come to the table, but you have to define yourselves as as First Nations. It's the same thing RCAP said 20 years ago. RCAP said, we're not 600 and something First Nations, we're about 50 to 60 across this country. And it's up to us to figure that out. So I really appreciate the positive energy that's come together, that you've brought together today, Maryantonett, and your team, together with Canadians for a New Partnership. What an impressive group to begin addressing this issue, and I'm really look forward to the results of this dialogue, of this discussion. Later this afternoon, Minister Bennett will be here, and maybe she could take some messages back to her cabinet colleagues, because it's time that we built this new relationship, and the point of departure is now. I don't believe that we can go down both paths at the same time, the colonial and the nation to nation. We need to make a choice and go at it full bore. Good luck on the next 2 days. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here, and thank you for the opportunity to make some opening remarks. How